There's none like you. There's none like you, Jesus. Yeah, yeah. There's none like you, Jesus. Yeah, yeah. There's none like you, Jesus. Oh, no. There's none like you, Jesus. How great the love, the Father, lavishes on us. How great your kindness is to us. How great your mercy is to us. How great your healing is to us. How great the love of the Father lavishes on us. Lavishes on
Lord of all creation, of water, earth, and sky, the heavens are your tabernacle. Glory to the Lord on high, God of wonders beyond our galaxy. You are holy, holy. The universe declares your majesty. You are holy, holy, Lord of heaven and earth, Lord of heaven and early in the morning, I will celebrate the light. And as I stumble in the darkness, I will call your name by night. God of wonders beyond our galaxy, you are holy, holy. The universe declares your majesty. You are holy, holy, Lord of heaven and earth, Lord of heaven and earth. Hallelujah to the Lord of heaven and earth. Hallelujah to the Lord of heaven and earth. Hallelujah to the Lord of heaven and earth. God of wonders beyond the galaxy, you are holy, holy. The universe declares your majesty. You are holy, holy. God of wonders beyond the galaxy. You are holy, holy, precious Lord, reveal yourself to me. You are holy, holy, holy.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Here's what we need to do, aside from other things. You need to get in groups. I need 6 groups, and everybody has to be in a group. I don't care how you group. You can be with people you know. You can be with people you don't know. You can be with people with the same hair color, people with the same underwear. I don't care. 6 groups. I need you in 6 groups. I need you in 6 groups now. So get up, move around, form 6 groups. Go. Break. Make it happen. Praise Jesus. There you go. All right, here we go. If you have a Bible, we are in Luke chapter 20. Luke chapter 20. Here's what's going on. Jesus is in Jerusalem. For those of you that don't know, we've been walking through the book of Luke since Advent, and we've been reading specifically Brian McLaren's translation of it, The Voice of Luke, Not Even Sandals. It's part of a series of books where they've taken the Bible and translated it, and they put these wonderful little commentary pieces in there. It's all that nice. Okay, here we go. We're in Luke chapter 20, and a crowd, look at the screen to get this, a crowd has gathered around Jesus. Now, that's not actually a photograph of Jesus, just so you know. The bleachers give it away. This is a staged presentation from somewhere. The bleachers give it away, right. That's Jesus from Kansas right there. But it helps me do something I want to do. This is a staged thing. There's a crowd gathered around Jesus, and he's going to tell them a parable. In a second, we're going to read through that parable together. You're going to listen to it as someone else. Each group is going to hear it as someone in the crowd, and I'm going to tell you who you are. And I want you to try, and this is impossible, but try to go back in time and hear it as that person. Jesus, theoretically, in this picture, is the guy in white. Obviously, he needs a haircut or something. I don't know. Jesus looked more Jewish than that, okay? I promise you. I wasn't there, but I promise. So, we're going to look at 6 people in the crowd. What? We'll start with this woman right here. Yeah, this group right here. Yeah, this group right here. I love you anyway. This group is the Jewish mother. You are a Jewish mother who every day, and this is important, spends time. Hey, listen, and I am staging something, okay? Public in confession. I'm setting something up, okay? It may not work. If it doesn't work, that's fine. You're a Jewish mother who spends time every day telling her children the stories of God, stories of how God was with Abram and Isaac and Jacob. You've most recently been telling your children about Exodus, the Moses and plague story, about God freeing the people of Israel from Egypt to take them where? To the promised land. I want to do Exodus this year. I love Exodus. So you need to remember that you're a Jewish mother. Next, let's do this guy. You're a rabbi. Who's going to be the rabbi group? I think this is the rabbi group right here. You're the rabbi. You've been in Jerusalem teaching, and you're teaching specifically from Deuteronomical texts. That means like Jeremiah, where God says to the people, God is going to enslave us because of your rebellion. Right? Nod your heads if that makes sense, okay? And so, you know, God has used the Babylonians and the Assyrians to punish you. You might even interpret Rome's occupation as a punishment for rebellion. You've wandered into the crowd and you hear Jesus teach. Okay, next. Ooh, this is a fun one. This is a fun one. You're the zealot, okay? You're the zealot. Can you be a zealot? Yes, exactly. Thank you. That's it. I'm done with that one. You are a follower of Jesus, but before becoming a follower of Jesus, you believed in the overthrow of Rome at any cost. And compliance and agreement was unacceptable and unforgivable. What are you? Oh, okay. So that's who you are. Now, you are a follower of Jesus, but you're tense right now because you're in Jerusalem and there's a strong Roman presence because what's coming? What's next? What's the big holiday? Passover is coming. So the Romans bring extra soldiers in because extra Jews are coming. It makes them nervous. So you're a zealot. Who have I not done yet? Okay, let's do this lady. An all-female group. Perfect. You are a fisherman's wife. It was uncommon in that day for women to be employed. So being a wife was a primary vocation. For some people it still is, and that's fine too. Your husband, but you know, I didn't mean to, it just happened. Your husband spends his nights fishing. Fishermen fish at night, all night. You're not Peter's wife, don't go there, okay? You're just a fisherman's wife. And he's paid very little money. You barely make it through. You survive on the fish he brings home and the fact you live with your family. You live with his family. Mama and Papa, I mean, there's 4 generations probably living in a house smaller than this room, okay? And that's how you survive. You wander in and you hear the teaching of Jesus. I know I've forgotten 2 people. All right, here we go. Let's do this one first. Who have I got left? This and who else? Oh, good. This group here, you're the teacher of the law. Dun, dun, dun. And you're not a nice teacher of the law. You're here to make sure Jesus doesn't get off track. You've had confrontations with him before. You've been assigned by the Sadducees to spy on him and to listen to him. And you are suspect of everything he says. I'll let you translate all that. And he's very popular, and that's very annoying too, because we don't like popular kids. And last group right here, you are the visitor. You're from out of the country. You're not Jewish. You wandered in. You're a spiritual thrill seeker, if you will. And you wandered in and you hear Jesus. And it's interesting to you. That's all I'm going to say. All right. If you don't remember, you're on your own, because I was going to print all these out and I just flat forgot. I'm going to admit it. So we are in Luke chapter 20. We're reading out of McLaren's translation. If you don't have that with you, any Bibles, well, not any Bible, but probably the Bible you brought with you will be fine. Whoever's going to read it. Before you read, I've got some terms to explain. Gosh, all this setup to get to the good stuff. I'm sorry. First of all, in this parable, there's some words you're going to hear. I want to make sure you know what they mean. The word vineyard is not just a word. Yes, Todd, thank you very much. I feel like I'm competing with you. And you're stronger than me, but I love you. Okay, the word vineyard is going to show up. Vineyard is a metaphor that is very common in Scripture. Ancient Israel would have understood itself as a vineyard. For instance, from the Psalms, you are brought a vine out, you talking about God, you brought a vine out of Egypt, you drove the nations out, you planted it, you cleared ground for it, you took it, and he's talking about a vine. From Isaiah chapter 5, and a lot of scholars think Jesus is borrowing from Isaiah 5 as he tells this parable. I don't know, maybe. I wasn't there. I will sing for the one I love a song about his vineyard. My loved one had a vineyard on a fertile hillside. Then he looked for a good crop of grapes, but it yielded only bad fruit. The word vineyard was a metaphor. Israel would hear itself as a vineyard. And it's not that we, the nation of Israel, are the vineyard. It's that the covenant God made with us is a vineyard. And part of what would go on is Sadducees and Pharisees and teachers of the law would see themselves as stewards of that covenant, protectors of it. It's a very familiar metaphor. And vineyards were all over the place in Galilee. And that's part of what else we need to talk about, tenants. That you're going to hear in the parable about tenants. A guy buys the vineyard and he rents it to tenants. It's very common in this day. Part of what happened is when Rome takes over the whole region, rich people from Rome show up and they buy huge estates in Galilee where it is lush and green and beautiful. And you can grow practically anything. Some of the best fruit I've ever had in my life was in Galilee. And these people would buy it, and then they would rent it. And when I say rent it, I mean they would hire slave labor to till it and take care of it and to ship the wine back to them. And they'd always have wine, and then they could sell or trade it. And it was very common in their day. One might hear it in their day as also, don't hear it as gainful employment. Hear it as being a slave to the man in some ways, if you will. Also in here, you're going to hear the phrase crushing stone. That is not from a wine press right there. Wine they did with their feet. That's probably from an olive grove where they pressed olives with one of those things. You get the metaphor of a crushing stone already, right? Okay, good. I don't have to do that. All right, then let's read. Luke chapter 20, whoever's reading, take off. It is going to be on the screen, yes. Whoever's reading, go. Verse 9. We start in verse 9. No. We have readers. We have set readers. Who are they? Go. He told the people this another parable.
Let's see, one day he was teaching his people at the temple, proclaiming the good news. The chief priests.
That's all right. Start.
I'm down here. Yeah.
Start right there.
Okay. Sweetheart, wow.
That's because I love you.
He told the people another parable. A man planted a vineyard, he rented it to tenants, and went on a long trip to another country. At the harvest time, he sent a servant to the tenants, so he could be paid his share of the vineyard fruit. But the tenants beat the servant and sent him away empty-handed. The man sent another servant, and they beat him and treated him disgracefully, and sent him away empty-handed too. He sent a third servant who was injured and thrown out. Then the vineyard owner said, "Now what am I going to do? I'll send my loved son, my much-loved son. They should treat him with respect." But then, when the tenants recognized the owner's son, they said, "Here's our chance to actually own his vineyard. Let's kill the owner's heir so we can claim this place as our own." So they threw him out of the vineyard and murdered him. What do you think the owner will do to these scoundrels? I'll tell you what he'll do. He'll come and wipe those tenants out and give the vineyard to others.
No, God forbid that should happen.
Why then do the Hebrew scriptures contain these words? The stone that the builders rejected has become the very stone that holds up the entire foundation. Everyone who falls on that stone will be broken to fragments, and if that stone falls on anyone, he will be ground to dust.
That was the last straw for the religious scholars and the chief priests. They were ready to attack him right then and there, but they couldn't for fear of public opinion, and they realized that Jesus, through this parable, had exposed their violent intentions.
Here's what I want you to do. I want you to spend some time, let's say 5 to 10 minutes in your group, talking about how would your person have heard the parable. I don't need you to focus so much on the scribes and Pharisees planning to kill him. Luke kind of says that point blank for us. We got that. How would they have heard the parable itself? And you don't know, you weren't in their mind, but best you can, talk about it, and then we'll have a little bit of talk back time. Go talk amongst yourselves. Okay, let's share. Let's jump into this thing. I don't have the pictures up because I don't want to go back and forth between the slides because that's just a headache. Let's start with the zealot. Because he's the easy one to start with.
Because we want to talk.
That's right.
Because obviously the owner of this vineyard is a Roman. And everything that happened to him was deserved. And his son deserved to die because we should own this land rather than be held slaves upon it.
Cool.
So I don't know where he was going with that last line, but we're just going to ignore it.
Like good church people. Excellent.
That last line would have been, no, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Surely
And
you
part-
mean that
and
the Jews are going to get wiped out. Surely.
And part of what's going on here is Jesus, and you know this about Jesus, he tends to say one thing, and his hand's over here. I have this game I play with my son, where I act like I'm going to slap him, and I do a couple of these, and he gets real focused on this hand, and all of a sudden I've got the back of his head, and it's a game we play. And Jesus does that a lot with people. He goes, oh, look at this, BAM! Hi, how are you? Love you. Love who you are. So, Jesus is going to sucker punch. Okay, and the zealot hears it that way. Let's do, where's the mom? Who is the mother? The Jewish mother. Okay, Jewish mother. And don't talk about our conversation. Don't talk about our conversation. Okay, who's going to talk over here for the Jewish mom? Oh, the mom. Excellent. What might a Jewish mother have heard as she was listening in? And we're making this stuff up.
We talked about how to allow her.
I'm sorry, Heather. I want to hear you. I'm going to play third grade teacher Joe and kind of get us focused.
Can you put us in the screen?
Your turn will come. Go ahead.
Perhaps allow her to, she viewed herself as also the owner, relate to the sons. What else did we talk about? Or the fact that, sending her son, she can relate it in an eternal way. And, come on, Jim.
You pointed out the fact that he predicted from death.
Yeah, I think she did that. That he predicted his own death when relating that, the son finally sends to the vineyard, Jesus is that son. And
so and Jim went out the day after the crucifixion, but she don't remember that story.
Okay.
Allow her to see that maybe this is the Messiah.
Okay, cool. Where's the rabbi? Is this the rabbi back here? Who's the rabbi?
You're the rabbi.
You're the rabbi. Tell me what you came up with, rabbi. What might the rabbi have heard?
Well, I think ours, the story is more like a puzzle, and we're trying to figure out which pieces go where. Because we're not exactly sure. I mean, we have an idea who we think the tenants are. But there's a possibility that they've been talking about Rome, but most likely he's talking about Israel. And the stewards. And so he might be indicting us. But at the same time, we're not sure if, when he's talking about the Son, if he's talking about himself. And if he is, then we have a whole tradition of, we possibly have offended God and we're being punished because of that. And so, do we have a face to look at of who we've offended? I think is the question. So.
And I don't want to jump off that too fast because I kind of was thinking the mother might grab that too. Part of what goes on behind the story is Israel understands its history, at least in some ways, as a reward and punishment scheme with God. We have offended God, and that's why the Assyrians have destroyed our homes. That's why Daniel is shackled and dragged into slavery, right? Because they've abandoned God. We had a bad king and a bad king and a bad king, and so we built up all these altars, and then we tore down those altars and built up the holy places, and we were set free. And there's this reward and punishment system that goes on with Israel. And what was the promise given to Israel?
Land flowing with milk.
A land flowing with milk and honey, and that your descendants would be as numerous as the stars. And here is Rome crushing Israel under her heel and not breaking a sweat doing it. And little children, little Jewish children are told all the time about how powerful God is, and yet all they hear is the crack of the whip, so to speak. And it's a real tension to live in. And I can't believe for a second that a Jewish mother wouldn't have immediately, and I had a week to work on it, you had 5 minutes, that's not fair. I think she would have said, gosh, these stories I tell my children are true. I believe they are true. Go ahead, Jimbo.
When you first gave this to us, I was going, I got nothing, except for one thing, and I could just see this mother telling all these powerful stories, and the kid's like, that's so cool. Really, where's the promised land? She goes, well, it's here. The kid rolls over, looks out the window, up and down the street, goes, seriously, no, where's the promised land?
And that's the reality in which they live. It's already here, we're in it, but we don't yet have it. Already, not yet. They're exiles in their own land. I mean, there's a whole lot there, but gosh, we gotta keep moving. Okay, who else have I forgotten?
Fisherman's wife.
Yeah, I'm coming back to that. Who's this? Oh yeah, that's the fisherman's wife.
Oh, we took her. Yeah, took you again.
No, I'm saving you for next.
There's a visitor too. Right.
There's a visitor last.
Go ahead.
I'm thinking that if she's a fisherman's wife and they really don't have any other choice for their situation. She's, staying with all of her in-laws, the whole family. They don't have any other opportunity. They have to be content with the situation. Plus, it's a pretty peaceful kind of a lifestyle, most likely, if they get along anyway.
Well, how could they not get along? He works at night, she's up during the day.
I don't even more than in-laws.
That's a great marriage right
But my first thought was that probably she would be shocked at the violence and at the people's lack of, complete inability to be content with their situation. Not only were they not content, it was to such an extreme point that they did serious injury to every person who came and then actually killed the son of someone that they should have been respectful toward.
Okay. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, teacher of the law, or scribe, or Pharisee. He's not a Pharisee. We know he's not a Pharisee because I said that.
Listen, we got it. I mean, you may, the other groups, they may have just sort of listened to what was going on and thought they had it and understood it. We got it. When we talk about history, it's built on what we wrote. We talk about brotherhood, she's just a small cog in a big wheel. And this guy meddled with us for a long time. And as Joe said, we were given the right to the vineyard to care for it as far back as the Garden of Eden. Now we understand that, right? Now, as time goes on, he starts this field up here, and we're saying, listen to this. And you know what? He went a little bit too far. What's your name? Sarah.
Her name is Sarah.
She said, you know, well, he got down to the point where he said that they were going to crush the owner, you know, that had this vineyard. And we got it. We knew who he was talking about because we wrote the history. We've been there. We read it all the time. He's talking about crushing us. It's not going to happen.
Sold up to Rome.
So what?
Sold up to Rome.
Which is great, because part of what's going on is, and there's a real tension here. I read one scholar who said, gosh, the scribes and, he argues, not the Sadducees, the scribes would have heard this story and understood what was going on and might have even listened to it and accepted it as a rebuke. And he goes into all these reasons of why scribes could hear it and Sadducees couldn't. But scribes were aware that Rome is listening and watching. And we have to placate Rome to keep our temple, right? And that's what we forget. Rome destroyed idols and religious centers everywhere they went. And they said, you worship Roman gods. They gave the Jews the permission. In fact, Herod even rebuilt the temple. And it was a way to try and keep the Jews under control. The Sadducees would never have been able to go there. They are bought into the system. I mean, literally, the person who's the high priest is not part of the family line that's supposed to be there. And it's a really terrible political situation. Good job. Visitor, gosh, you listened to all that story. What'd you hear?
We would be confused if we didn't know the history of what a vineyard was. You know what a vineyard was, but not necessarily how it related to the area.
Certainly not the Jewish self-understanding or the metaphor.
Right. But we would understand the giving it to tenants and having them work the land. But also the fact that, and you brought this up, that from the outside, since she is from the outside, that if they then gave the land to other people, that she could then have a possibility to have part of the land, which she wouldn't have otherwise.
And this is a very Jewish encounter. We are in Jerusalem right before the Passover. And it is Judaism, Judaism, Judaism. Jesus is not healing Samaritans here. Jesus is not offering hope to Gentiles. Jesus is preaching against the Jewish religion leaders. Not the religion, the leaders. Right? Jesus never says, don't be Jewish. Right? Nod your heads this way. He never says that. I have to tell people all the time, Jesus was really Jewish. All the way Jewish, like they cut him. If you don't know what that means, ask Jim, he's got pictures. Jewish, but he's preaching against the religion here, and particularly against the religious leaders. Part of what's happened is Judaism has drifted under Roman rule, and it's become about a nationalistic identity and all these shallow boundary markers about circumcision, about Sabbath, about keeping, only certain foods, about all the food laws, the purity laws. And it's not about righteousness and mercy and justice. Their own poor are starving, and most Jews do nothing about it. The religion that gets measured is this really shallow stuff, like do you go to Sunday school? Are you part of a group? Well, I'm translating, but you get the point. And Jesus is calling out the religious leaders. And outsiders, I really feel I need to press. I'm sorry. It's 15 after. And that clock's wrong. It's 12:15. Jesus is really pressing forward here. There's three things that stood out on me, that really stayed with me. And we've touched all of them this week as I was looking at it. The first one is, and I didn't talk, I'm not even going to talk about that. I didn't talk about it earlier. Jesus really is wrestling with his own people here, and it's a confrontation. Jesus is standing in front of the Jewish leadership, and he's basically slapping them in the face and daring them to a duel. And he knows where it's going. Anybody watching knows where it's going. All the Jewish leadership has to do is to get Rome involved, and Rome doesn't put up with stuff. Certainly not around a Jewish holiday. He'll be strung out and hung on a road where everybody can see him. They'll finish this. And Jesus is walking into it head first. Interestingly, so does the vineyard owner. The owner of the vineyard sends 1, 2, 3 servants and then his much-loved son straight into the face of danger. Here's a note about God. He's willing to put you in harm's way. It's like they say about Aslan in one of those books that I didn't read. Is he safe? No. He's good. Mike Yaconelli, this guy I used to listen to, a sage in the faith, used to say, you want to ruin a kid's life? Let him hear the call of God to ministry. And this is a confrontation. And I'm just going to say this, and you can disagree with me, but you can do it later. I think God is calling on us to be willing to confront more than we're willing to confront. We like to save face and keep things happy and keep things pretty. And I'm not telling you to go on the corner and call people names. We had that guy come to our school when I was in college preaching. But there are things that should be confronted in our culture. And Jesus wasn't afraid to call them out. And sometimes I think we are. Secondly, there is a theme of judgment in this parable. Jesus is not hesitant from it at all. He says the cornerstone, which is a phrase the early church will pick up on, right? They'll pick up on that. We've got a crucified Messiah. Crud, that's hard to explain. Oh, wait! The cornerstone. That's now the cornerstone. I mean, they grab that and they go with it. The stone the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. That's in Acts. It's in Peter. It's all over the place. They grab it. But Jesus says there's a crushing stone and a stumbling stone. There's a song by Michael Card called Scandalon, and he says that everybody has to stumble on Jesus or they can't follow him. And I think there's something to that. This idea of judgment is in the text. And you notice nobody's being judged because they said a cuss word. Nobody's being judged because they wore a miniskirt. Nobody's being judged because they voted the wrong party. The judgment here is you didn't respond when I sent for you, which could be about unrighteousness and injustice and about a failed stewardship of the vineyard. And the third thing that got me, and it got me Friday in conversation with Jim, and it stopped everything for me. Jim and I are at lunch. That's my company, Jim and I. We're at lunch, and Jim makes the observation, look at this guy. And he talks about how he normally, and most of us would probably identify ourselves in this parable as the others. We're the others to whom the vineyard is given. And who is this idiot landowner that sends one guy, gets him beaten and abused, and it's the same word, abused, as what Luke describes happens to Jesus before crucifixion. It's the same word. And then he sends another. And then he sends another. You'd have thought he got the clue after the first one. Don't send any more people. They're going to beat them. Unless you understand yourself as the tenant. Unless you understand yourself as a steward of this promise that God has made. And then this God who will send not one, not two, not 3 good people, but his own Son to try to win you back. Sounds like a fool in love, more than just a fool. And I live in a day and an age when I am convinced the stewards of the vineyards are struggling and failing at all costs. That the promise made to Abraham, the promise that I will bless you so that you can be a blessing to the world, is being handled poorly at best by those who say they love God. And I'm afraid of that stumbling and that crushing stone. But I serve a God who is willing to do whatever it takes to win back the people of the world. And we remember that every week as we come to this table. We remember a God who is willing to be abused to win us back. And we break bread and we remember his body, torn and broken for us. We take a cup and we remember the covenant of his blood poured out for us. I would invite you this morning back to the table of Christ. We'd grab a little piece of bread and we dip it in either this cup or in the wine, whichever is right for you. And remember a God who will not let go, who continues to do what it takes to come back and to call us home. All are welcome. We're going to sing a song. I invite you to come to the table during that time. Would you pray with me? Our Creator and loving God, God of Abraham and Jacob and Joseph, you who has never slept a day, who has stayed awake and faithful to your people all of life. We come before you as men and women who have been grafted into that promise. A promise that was not given to us, but that was extended to us. And we are so grateful and so humbled. You have entrusted us with good news for the world. Good news about your love and your grace and your justice and your mercy. And we, like religious leaders of so many times, have sat on it and called it our own and tried to control it rather than releasing it and sending it forward. Father, thank you for the teachings of Jesus Christ. Teachings that at times we stumble on, at times that seem to crush us, and at times set us free and rebuild our hearts and our bodies. Father, as we break this bread, as we dip in this cup, we remember Christ. We remember his body and his blood. We remember his birth and his death and his resurrection. And we pledge our lives to you again. We love you and we worship you. In the name of Christ, amen.
sanctified by glory and fire. And now I found the greatest love of all is mine, since you laid down your life, the greatest sacrifice. Sing it
Thank you for being here. May the God who refuses to leave us where we are be with you this week. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Spirit, I send you out.